So let's talk about this Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson interview that blew up the internet this week. Two big names, nearly 2 hours, and a whole lot of fireworks, but also kind of a glimpse into the divide that's forming inside of the conservative movement. And it's not just about policy, it's about tone, discourse, strategy, and whether we're serious about leading or just out here farming for clicks. So Tucker kicks things off by hitting Cruz on regime change in Iran and his support for Israel. Not with a policy question, mind you, but with a Bible verse quiz. Seriously. While talking about his support for Israel, Ted Cruz said, he said, "Look, I grew up in Sunday school, and I was taught those who bless Israel will be blessed," which makes sense, especially coming from Ted Cruz. He's always been vocal about his faith and his support for Israel. But Tucker immediately went for the gotcha moment, mocking Cruz for not having the exact scripture reference available. What book of the Bible is that from, he asked, like it's some kind of pop quiz he's running here. Admittedly, Cruz didn't know off the top of his head, which most people wouldn't. So Tucker, in his little condescending way, says it's in Genesis. Now, the internet is saying that Tucker's wrong about that, but in fairness, he was right. It's from Genesis 12:3. "I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." In context, it's God speaking to Abraham. And this verse is often cited as the biblical foundation for supporting Israel, since Abraham is considered the patriarch of the Jewish people. So Tucker was technically correct. It's in Genesis, though it's not phrased the way that most people generally quote it. That aside, what Tucker's doing here is playing Bible Jeopardy. Meanwhile, Ted Cruz is trying to talk about strategic alliances and the existential threats that we face. Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East, he says, and he's right. Then things got even more contentious. Tucker asks Cruz, kind of out of the blue, how many people live in Iran? I don't sit around memorizing population tables, Cruz said, which honestly is a fair response. He's not a census taker. I don't know how many people live in Iran either. I just know that the Ayatollah can't be allowed to get his hands on nukes. But Tucker decides to pounce once again. You don't know anything about Iran. You don't know anything about the country whose government you want to overthrow, he said with his smug little cackle. Look, here's the thing. Tucker knew the questions he was going to ask. He had the opportunity to prepare for this. He had the answers right there in front of him, just like Alex Trebek did. The difference is Alex Trebek was far less condescending to the guests on his quiz show. But it's at this point that it's clear Tucker isn't interested in a policy discussion. He wants a viral moment, something he can clip, something he can post and turn into a headline. And Ted Cruz sees right through it. And he flat out says, "I want to stop a lunatic who wants to murder us from getting a nuclear weapon that could kill millions of Americans." And he nailed it. That's the issue here. It's not about whether Ted Cruz knows the Azeri-Persian breakdown in Tehran. It's about keeping nukes out of the hands of a religious extremist. Then they got into Donald Trump, and Tucker basically implies that Ted Cruz has abandoned America first. But Cruz was having none of it. He called out Tucker for attacking Trump in his own newsletter just that morning, saying, "You put out a newsletter attacking Donald Trump, calling him complicit. You put out a whole newsletter saying that Trump has abandoned America first." Look, this isn't Cruz just defending his own record. He's calling Tucker out for pretending to be the gatekeeper of MAGA while contradicting Trump's own foreign policy positions. And he's not wrong. Tucker has shifted around a lot on this stuff. Iran, Iraq, Ukraine, all of them. Although in Tucker's defense, he does admit that. Speaking of Ukraine, I think that was their next stop. Tucker said that Cruz was supporting a position that has led to 1 million deaths. Ted immediately pushes back and said that the number of falsehoods you lay out in one statement is rather stunning. And he's not wrong there, because Ted Cruz has been consistent here. He supports helping Ukraine defend itself, but he's also been vocal about making sure we keep the Biden administration accountable for the mess that we find ourselves in now. And he conceded that he did support the first round of funding to Ukraine, the $80 billion. But he immediately saw that the money and the policy wasn't working. And so he didn't support any more funding after that. Once that attack failed, Tucker moved on to AIPAC, trying to frame Cruz's support for Israel as some kind of obsession, claiming that it's tied to lobbying influence. You could tell where that was going. Cruz shut it down immediately, saying that AIPAC is made up of American citizens advocating for a U.S.-Israel alliance. That's it. He even called Tucker out on his language, calling it fever swamp rhetoric. And honestly, it was. Now, Tucker turned that into some kind of victim complex nonsense, like it was an implication that he's anti-Semitic, which, you know, if I'm being honest, he does seem to be lately. I don't think he is, but he comes off that way lately. Cruz made the case quite clearly that being pro-Israel doesn't mean you've got some secret loyalty problem. It means you understand alliances, you understand deterrence, and you're not afraid to say it. By the end of the interview, you could tell what kind of match it was. Tucker brought the victimhood, the hyperbole, the interruptions, the quizzes. He came for the clicks. Ted Cruz, he came to explain things. Not perfectly, not without some fumbles, but with actual substance. He had receipts. He had positions. He wasn't just reacting. He was walking through policy, even when the questions were designed to trip him up. So if you watched that interview and you saw a senator getting steamrolled, I don't think you were paying attention. What you saw was a guy who doesn't bend with the wind, doesn't care about being liked in the moment, and actually knows what he believes. Tucker put on a show. Ted Cruz made a case. And if we're choosing leaders based on who performs better in a hostile interview, then fine. But if we're choosing based on who actually knows how to govern and protect American interests, then Ted Cruz reminded me why he still matters, why he's still relevant. And look, the reason Tucker gets away with this sleazy, smarmy, gotcha style of interview is because people let him. But Ted Cruz didn't flinch. He didn't need Tucker's approval. He came to make a case. Look, I like Tucker, but his style, it's always left something to be desired. He's the mouthy little kid that never got his ass kicked. And at some point, someone's going to go on that show and kick the chair out from underneath them. And maybe then we'll finally get an interview that's about real ideas instead of the typical bitchy gotcha routine dressed up as journalism that he's famous for. Until then, at least Ted Cruz reminded me what it looks like when an adult shows up. Thanks for watching, guys. We go live Monday and Thursday on Rumble and X, not here on YouTube for obvious reasons. So go find us on the other channels. Hit follow. We appreciate it. Thanks.